Take a seat, please make yourself comfortable, and we're about to begin our All Things Op Shop event. On behalf of the Byron Bay Uniting Church, I'd like to welcome you all into this space today, and as we gather here in this way for this special time, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this place, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and we're thankful for the way they have cared for this place, their strong and rich heritage. And we commit ourselves to exploring what it means to care for this beautiful world together. It's a real privilege to be able to gather together for this event today, something that's been on my heart for many months, of a way of thanking those people who work in op shops around our region, and particularly here in Byron Bay, and to encourage everyone and to just put on a great afternoon where we can hear a wonderful speaker who I'll introduce you to in a few moments, and we can also share a fun afternoon tea together afterwards. If you haven't been in this space before, the amenities, the toilets are just through the back door to the right. The first door is women's toilets, and then a couple of doors on is the men's toilets. So if you need to make use of those, please do so. We're going to begin our time with a keynote talk from our guest speaker. Then there'll be a time for some questions and answers, and you can maybe think of some questions as you listen. You might have some questions you'd like to ask, and I'll explain how that's going to happen. And then we have a wonderful afternoon tea prepared. We have fresh fair trade barista coffee if you'd like to have a coffee, and fair trade tea as well, and lots of treats. So look forward to those as well. A few years ago, we had the privilege of hosting two of the key leaders from the Wayside Chapel here at Byron Bay, Reverend John Owen, the CEO, and Reverend Kent Crawford, who is Director of Ministry, or some other roles he's been engaging in there. And it was a really inspirational time for our church council here at Byron Bay, and some of our key leaders as we shared a meal with them and talked to them about the Wayside Chapel and the amazing work they do in the community of inner Sydney and Bondi as well. And we were inspired and began to develop a nice, friendly relationship with Wayside Chapel. I myself got to go down a couple of times and visit and see Wayside Chapel in action, and they've come up here and visited as well. And as part of that journey, I got to meet Vina Thompson, who's just here to my left. This is Vina. Say hi, Vina. Hi. She'll introduce herself as well in a few moments. And I got to meet Vina, and she showed me around the op shop at Wayside Chapel. I took her on a bit of a tour of our op shop with my laptop. I just sort of walked through the op shop. She was on the screen and showed her our op shop and talked about op shops and got some ideas. And we've been working on a range of things here in Byron Bay as well. And so it was part of this relationship where we developed it further and said, well, why don't we get someone like Vina to come up from the Wayside Chapel and share a bit about how they do things there and what their experience has been, as a way of just encouraging us. And I know when I look out there that there are some people that have spent their lives in op shops. So there's lots of experience in this room. There's lots of people that are really passionate about recycling and op shops, and know that they're not just a way of raising important revenue for ministry and for congregations and organisations, but they're actually a wonderful way of connecting to a community. And for those of us passionate about ministry and community connection, they're an amazing way of doing that. And I think we're all still finding how to do that in our own communities. So we've invited Vina Thompson to come up, and Wayside Chapel have been really generous in enabling her to come up here as well as part of her work to speak to us today. Now, Vina Thompson is currently the Retail Operations Manager at Wayside Chapel, and just last month was one of the keynote speakers invited to speak at the Charitable Reuse Conference in Sydney. So she's had a lot of opportunities and is well respected. And if you're on Instagram, you probably should follow Wayside Chapel Op Shop. Yeah. Vina's on there with some great ideas and videos of things they're doing, and some great words of wisdom. So we're so thankful that you've been able to come up, Vina, and we're going to welcome you with a round of applause and look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, and thank you everybody for coming today and welcoming me in. I'm just going to set a timer because I absolutely love Wayside and I love the op shop and I love the community, so I have to be put on a timer because I could go on for days about it. Oh, no, there we go. So, about 10 years ago, everything in my life was going swimmingly. I was ticking boxes, bought a house, had a great career. The kids were going well. We were giving them opportunities. I was married to a great man, still married to that great man, and all of a sudden, as life does, one area of life started imploding. But I still had a mortgage, well, we still had a mortgage, so we still had to work. And we still had to turn up every day for our kids. And I rang my mother one day in the car park and I was falling apart. And when you're fortunate enough to have a good mother sometimes, and it's tough for mums, now that I am one, I do understand that, mums have to cut through. And mum said, "You need to get it together, darling. Your dad and I are worried about you. You need to volunteer." And it stopped me in my tracks because, you know, you're always a child to your parents, and I thought, what is she telling me that for? I'm having this moment. I feel broken. Why is she saying that? But I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try and find a place to volunteer. I had a full-time job, so it wasn't that easy because I not only had a full-time job, I had my children and all of their things, you know, being a chauffeur to your kids. And I happened upon the Wayside, and it offered flexibility, so I didn't have to do set shifts. It was open in the weekends, and I really wanted to volunteer in the op shop. But the op shop was a tightly held cartel, so I couldn't get a foot in the door. And so I begrudgingly took a shift on the front desk in the community service centre. And the community service centre, what does that look like? We work with people experiencing homelessness and addiction. And so people will come in for a shower, people will come in for a fresh pair of undies, a clean pair of socks, a change of clothes. We meet people at a point of crisis, oftentimes. And when I tell you that that first shift changed my life irrevocably forever, I mean that to my very core. I actually left there and felt so euphoric after that 3-hour shift and called my mum and said, "I actually feel really guilty." And she said to me, "Why do you feel guilty, love?" And I went, "Because I'm there supposed to be helping people and I've come away and I just feel so like uplifted." And she said, "That is what it is to serve, darling, to be outside of yourself." And I really tell you, it literally changed and saved my life at that time. So I could go, and it wasn't even that thing of where you could think, oh, there's somebody worse off than I. It was, I could go in and provide practical assistance to people. And when I was at this point where an area of my life felt so out of control. So I would go in every Saturday on a fortnight for 3 hours there. And then my youngest was born, and I was 7.5 months pregnant before I stopped volunteering. And the lead volunteer had to take me into the office and say, "Darling, we have to have a chat." And I started crying because I knew, I said, "I have to stop volunteering, don't I?" She said, "Yes, sweetheart, it's that time." And I was crying because I knew I was going back into early motherhood, you know, back into the early days of motherhood, and that opportunity to volunteer was going, because you have to pour that energy in. It's not, you know, I do it willingly, but I was sad because that meant so much to me to go in there. And then years later, you know, I was sitting there and I thought, oh, I'd love to work at Wayside Chapel. And my background is I work with entrepreneurs. I don't have to be an expert at what you do, but I'll treat your business like you're my own. And I go in and I tweak things, and I'll build warehouse teams, or I'll build teams, but I love to observe. I don't want to come in and take over. And then I was looking on Instagram in an ad for Wayside Chapel. They're looking for an op shop manager. And that came up. And I thought, that's it. Because I'd made millions of dollars for people willingly, right? And I just thought, I want to make money for something that means so much for me and did so much for me. And I just want to show you a picture of me at Wayside. What do we do? I'm not the best with technology, but... So here's me on the front desk at Wayside, where we're organising undies. That was years ago, and we're getting ready to hand them out to people. This is where we hand out towels, people getting ready to have a shower. It's amazing, you're giving people dignity. Whenever I sell something in the op shop and somebody says, where's it going? I'll tell you what really moves people, and I've done the script a few times. They say, oh, you've actually helped somebody get a fresh pair of undies today, darling. And that resonates with everybody. And I say, and a shower. Because you handed somebody back their dignity today. Because it's those small acts of kindness and humanity that are the most powerful. So here's our low-cost cafe. We do have free meals, like community meals, where we'll have in our King's Cross Community Service Centre, we have a Thursday community lunch. And then in Bondi, we have breakfasts. But this is our low-cost cafe, and nothing is over $4. You get fruit salad, full meals, cooked in our commercial kitchen upstairs. And then, through generosity, some caterers will send things in too. And it's just a great place of community and gathering. So often when I have my lunch break, I'll sit in there. I've known we call the people who access our services visitors. And I've known some of the visitors for 10 years since I started volunteering. So they're real friendships and connections that have built up, and same with the people I've volunteered with. This is our rooftop garden. So this is all built on the power of community and togetherness, and a focal point of doing the best that we can for the people who are the most vulnerable. We've been going for 60 years, and it's a testament to people like yourselves of coming together as community that these things can happen and communities can shift and lives can be changed. That's our CEO in the middle and our visitors around. That's the King's Cross op shop. There's me doing the hard sell and one of my friends. Us sorting in the back. And I just wanted to show you this because we've only got 2 op shops, and we're not glitzy and we're not big, but we're a treasure trove and we're a place for connection. Okay, so I'm going to leave that image there. Everywhere we go now, there are less and less opportunities for human interaction. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. Self-serve at Woolies. ATM, no longer need to go into the bank. And even if you did, they'd tell you to call the 1300 number and wait for 2 hours. There is home delivery. There's online ordering. There's work from home. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong from work from home. It has its merits. But the commonality through all of this is we forget how to be with each other, how to talk to each other. And everything is to be completed with a quickness. Self-serve, get out. ATM, move. Da-da-da-da-da-da. With the cost of living crisis, the pressure that people are feeling from all walks of life, we have less patience. We're under a lot of stress. The housing crisis. And that then when we do meet each other on those rare occasions, because we've lost those moments of connection and community, they can become quite tense interactions. I remember my grandfather's community store. We called them Foursquare. He owned the butchers and he owned the little supermarket before supermarkets were supermarkets. And we knew everybody in the neighbourhood, and they knew my grandfather. And my nana owned a dress store, and she had seamstresses, and then we knew everybody, and everybody kept an eye on us. You couldn't get up to much mischief, but you'd go into the store, and people had a chat. And I was just in the op shop one day and realised that is exactly what is missing. That was something I'd done since a child. I was always with my grandparents, and when my parents were working and whatnot, I'd been behind those counters. And I knew the power of it. So I have a thing that I call the op shop is the corner store philosophy. We invite you to come in, and we invite you to go slow. It's a place where we can practice those conversations and those community connections, those acts of kindness and that gentleness with your neighbours. There is nothing better than walking into a place and people say, "How was your son's soccer game? Oh, that skirt looks fabulous. Did you get it from here last time?" Or one of our regular customers walking out going, "What do you think of this outfit?" And when you encourage people to go slow, they bring down barriers, they feel less isolated, and we increasingly build up what is so important for our mental health and well-being, community and connection. I'm not too sure what it's like here, but oftentimes community connection in Sydney is about, we need to have a big event, which has its merits. We do need to come together and you have your community events, but community connection needs to be an everyday thing. Otherwise, we just don't function well as a neighbourhood, as a community, and to a high level as a society, because we've not got those moments to be together and function. So some of the things that I started doing in my op shop is I would, because I was a volunteer, and I believe in the power of volunteering and how important it is, I wanted to hire people, because we have a mix of volleys and a mix of paid staff. And so I started hiring paid staff who were students, sort of like under 20s, still studying and wanted to work part-time, so that they could be this connection between volleys who had finished their working life and my younger team. Because what it does is help flourish these incredible learning journeys for both parties. So some of my volleys will say, "Oh my goodness, so-and-so's been telling me about this new band that's coming to town," and the next minute my volunteer is going with my young team member to go and see that band. We've just had some incredible friendships built and learnings. And for my younger team members, it's brought about this understanding, because they've grown up in a lot of cases, it's a child care and then after school care, and a lot of people wouldn't necessarily live close to their grandparents, so it gets to be this really important connection, this like wisdom and age and experience and youth and vitality, and when the two come together, it's really quite magical. And so when I started doing that, when I came back, I think we were struggling to get volunteers in the op shop. And now I have people saying to me, "You can't get into the op shop, there's no shifts," which I used to say, because people want to be there and they want to be together. And because we have that fantastic mix of youth and experience, it really makes it a dynamic workplace for everybody. I like to encourage and empower teams to come together in a collaborative process so that people can work out what may be best for the op shop as a whole. I think all of you here understand, the many hours that you've put in there and the deep connections that you have to the op shop. I was just saying to Phil before, I'm really good friends with the women the volunteers who used to run the op shop. And part of that is because I respect what they did And they can see that I respect what they did and that I understand that my role is a stewardship. And I'm there to help make sure that it continues into the future and that it fosters a place of safety and growth for my volunteers, for our visitors who come in, for the revenue stream, and for our paid staff. Another aspect that I like to think of with the op shops is it's actually a physical touch point of coming into, for example, with Wayside, so that they can experience what it's like if they came into our community service centre as a visitor. So I want the care for the general public and our customers when they come into the store to be the recipient of the level of care that visitors would receive in our community service centre, because that can make people feel more comfortable if they do need to access our services to go into our community service centres. For example, if people are wanting to come back to the church, that might be through going into the op shop and the interactions that they have next door. And they'd been thinking about it, but it felt a bit too full on to walk straight into the congregation. But they had all of these amazing experiences in the op shop that it made them feel comfortable, and it was the stepping stone. And I'd like to give you an example of this. The other day, so I try to be on the floor once a week, every week, so I can keep a feel of what's happening. And I love my volunteers. I like to be with my volunteers and my team and the customers. I think it's important, particularly in retail, that I always have a grasp of what's happening on the floor. It was a lull in trade, and I actually hadn't been on the floor for a couple of weeks because of work commitments. And this young woman's there, looks like one of my 23-year-old daughter. And she says, "Oh, I like that tie," and she's struggling to put it on. I said, "Oh, give it here, sweetheart," and I pop it on. I go, "Oh, that's my private schoolgirl's education there." I was like, "There's one thing I took away. I can remember how to tie a tie." And then I pop it on her, and she puts it on. And I say, "Oh, looks good, doesn't it?" Yep. She comes up, and normally all the ties are $3. This one was particularly special anyway. It was in a cabinet for $15. She said, "Oh, I don't have the money for that today. I'll come back another day." And I went, "Oh, don't worry. $3 is fine. That's how much they normally are. And it looked good on you." And she said, "Oh, thank you so much. You sure that'd be lovely? Because I just got housing. So I'm a bit excited today. I just got housed. I've been homeless for 2 years." Sometimes it's hard on my heart to talk about these things because I was looking in the face of one of my daughters, and I didn't know. I didn't know from the way that she was dressed. She's just dressed like one of my kids. She was like, I thought she was just, and I said, "No, you have that tie, sweetheart. That's a celebration. That's a gift. And whenever you put that on, you just remember that this is your fresh start." And she said, "Oh, actually, I don't have any furniture, and one of my neighbours told me that I should come up here and that someone here might be able to help me." I said, "Oh, of course, darling. You just pop out this door, go next door and go to our community service centre at the front desk." And just like one of my children, even though they're strong, everybody needs their mum's help sometimes, right? Like I said earlier, she said, "I'm actually too nervous. Can you please come with me?" That's why I came in the op shop first. I was just trying to get the courage to go over there. "Can you please come with me?" And I said, "Of course I can. Of course I can." So in that moment, I extolled the values of what Wayside is, know us and them, meeting people where they're at, and because we're not trying to rush people out, it gave the opportunity for that young woman to feel relaxed and safe and ask if I could help her. And that's the power of the op shop, because people have to browse and they want to take their time. And I always say to my team, they're treasure hunting, and sometimes it's not for clothes. Sometimes it's for connection. Sorry, I just have to, sometimes it's for connection, conversation, when I first came back, people would say, oh, sorry, I haven't bought anything today. And I'd say, oh, no, you don't have to buy anything today, but you do have to come back and have a chat. You can do that every day if you like, twice a day. And listen, I do love to make money, and it actually does have incredible impact on revenue because people just want to keep coming back. I do not hard sell. I always say to people when they're umming and ahhing, I go, oh, it's the law of the op shop, and my team are to do this too, this is part of the training. The law of the op shop is unless you're 100% on it, you mustn't buy it because you're being swayed by the price. And what you can do is you put it back, and if you go home and you keep thinking about it and you come back, well, you're meant to have it. And if you come back and it's not here, you weren't meant to have it. If somebody comes out and they ask you their opinion of what they're wearing, you go, oh, I'm not too sure about that one, right? And sometimes, often customers have said to me, oh, you're doing yourself out of a sale. And I said, no, darling, because I want you to know when I tell you something looks amazing on you, it looks amazing on you. And really what I'm doing is building up relationships and connections because we have our visitors and we also have professionals coming through. And the top end of town is incredibly lonely, let me tell you. When people are homeless, they have to band together. That's where their safety is. And I often see more community within my homeless cohort than I do with people who are very successful and who are coming in like turtles to the shore, yearning for that connection. There's a flow-on effect too of inviting people to go slow. People can come in, they will interact with the op shop if you're looking for funding, if they've had an enjoyable, and I don't mean everything has to be happy and da-da-da. If they've had an authentic experience within the op shop, when the call goes out to say, we're looking to fund this or build this, or this is a program that we're wanting to offer. Quite often people will say, oh, I was in your op shop the other day and I really loved the team and I just wanted to say I'd like to make a donation. So the op shop really is like a public facing arm of an organisation. And it's really important that we remember that when we're with people. And if we are encouraging people to go slow, like I say, and we can build those connections, we just deepen our roots within the community. Because what you're really wanting people to do, when people interact with your op shop, you want them to go out into the community and tell everybody about it. You want to get that word out there about who you are as individuals within the op shop, the work that you're doing within the community because of the revenue within the op shop. And I mean, it's an age-old adage, word of mouth is the best form of advertising. And it's crucial in this day and age. So there's been a few reports that have been released over the past couple of months, and it's like a trust barometer. And people are increasingly losing trust within their governments, organisations, and look, it's really understandable. But I'm also seeing it come through when people are talking about other charities. Quite often people come into the op shop and they'll be like, Vinnie's this, Salvo's that, da-da-da-da-da. And I'll say, do you know Vinnie's provides these programs and Salvo's has these programs. And when I was a single mum, Vinnie's helped put school shoes on my two older children's feet. I will never ever forget that. And people say yes. So people are very aware of the great works that they do. And I'll say, well, it needs to be funded from somewhere. And the gap between what government funds and what is put onto the community is only growing. And, churches, organisations, charities, we still have overheads. And so we need to be a place that people trust and have a good feeling about, so that we can lessen that negative dialogue that is often had about, op shops. It was really interesting. I was having a discussion the other day with somebody and they said, everything's overpriced, and I went, oh, well, actually, Charitable Reuse Australia released a report 2 months ago, in June. There's 3,000 op shops Australia-wide. The average price of an item from an op shop, can anyone guess? $5. $5. So despite what people might feel, the data actually speaks otherwise. And despite what people might feel, the crisis, the humanitarian crisis that we're facing in Australia is only growing. And government services, shelters, all of those things are closing, and increasingly that pressure is being put on charities, on churches, right? And so we need to be comfortable and confident in what we're doing to be able to build connections and relationships with people, so we are able to say, actually, the average price of an item from an op shop Australia-wide is $5. So when you build up those relationships, you can say to people, well, actually, they are closing down services for people experiencing domestic violence. When people feel comfortable with you, as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, they'll let their guard down. And we can have meaningful conversations that are data-led, not just based on someone's feeling because they think that something's not the way that they like. And those things within my op shop have become increasingly important. So, when I find out information like that, I tell all my volunteers, I tell all my team, so that they feel comfortable and confident to have those conversations within our community. And I encourage you to reflect on moments where you've been able to assist a person, or we call it at Wayside a moment that matters, something quite profound that has happened within the op shop, or when you've been providing services within your organisation, within the church. Because numbers are amazing, yeah? But it's the story that goes along with it. When I tell you that story go slow, take your time, it really matters when I tell you about that 22-year-old kid, because I was going slow and took my time and made her feel comfortable. That's like life-changing for her and life-changing for me. I also encourage my team. When I speak of my team, I'm speaking volunteers and my paid staff. I just think of us, we're just all a team, a cohesive unit together. I encourage my team when they're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed by the work, because the work is heavy in an op shop. It's a lot, and volunteering, and then life and everything else around. When you're having those moments, I encourage self-care. It's really important that you step back and take time for yourself. If you need to have a few shifts off, it's really important so that you can fill your cup, and it's okay to fill your cup. It's more than okay, it's really important, so that when you are in the op shop, that you can be with people and that you can give of your best and that you leave there feeling just as fulfilled. It's very important that you, whilst doing this important work, feel fulfilled. If at any time you feel burnt out, it's time to take a break, and it's totally okay. More than okay, it's very important. And I encourage you to look for the joy. So whilst I tell you stories that have moved me, and there's been many moments when my heart has been broken, but there's many moments where my heart has soared. When I'm with a visitor in the store and they're putting on all these different funny hats and piling them up together, and I've got a professor of law from Sydney Uni, and I've got another visitor, and I've got a TV host there, and we're all there together, just united, having this laugh at one of our friends putting hat after hat on their head, or dancing and laughing in the op shop. You know, there's many moments for joy, and you must hold on to those and reflect on those and the power of that, the power of togetherness and joy. I was taking a photo before of the values. Values are so important, yeah, they tie us together. They tie us together. And they must be living, and they must be breathing, and they must be at the forefront within an organisation. And an organisation is only as powerful as its people. There's a Māori proverb. Tell me what is most important. It is the people, it is the people, it is the people. It's you. It's you. It's what keeps it running. So I really love your values. God is at the heart of all we do. But I particularly love unconditional love, passionate justice, inspired hospitality, far-reaching generosity, embodied discipleship. Those are so powerful. They're so alive. There's such easy touch points to go at, and you can do that check. When I'm going in today, do I feel like, because you know, if you feel like, I'm not too sure I'm going to do a body scan, how do I feel? I want to show up when I feel unconditional love. I'm ready to pursue passionate justice, offer inspired hospitality, serve far-reaching generosity, and I want to show that I embody discipleship. It's a really good way of checking in. Because you want to align with those values, and you want to be honest with yourself. If you look at that and think, you know, those really don't align with my values anymore, which is fine, which is okay, right? People change and things change over time. But when you work within an organisation, you must look at those values and go, can I live those values when I'm here? Can I be an embodiment of those values when I'm in here? And I think it keeps the work at the forefront of what you do then. And the work that you're doing within the Byron community is incredible. And you probably don't even realise how important it is. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. It's really important for me to also acknowledge the unique situation that many of you have been in to see the shift within Byron and the rise of homelessness and the way that you turn up continually for the people who seek shelter and solace within your property and premises. You know, here and further afield from where you've come from, I really want to acknowledge that. Because I opted in to work with the cohort of people experiencing homelessness and addiction. I opted in. My volunteers opt in. I tell them when they come, you know, we have all of these onboarding things, and I always say, you know, this is what you're signing up for. But I really want to acknowledge that within this room you would have seen such a shift, and it makes the work that you do even more incredible because you've gone, you know what, I can see it change. I know the call is great. I know the work is going to be heavy, and you still do it. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that, because that takes a lot of grit and kindness and far-reaching generosity. I want to finish on how I like to be with people and what shaped my model of care. People say, you know, your customer service strategy. For me, it's a model of care. Years ago when I was volunteering, I know I'm talking about mums a lot, but so predominantly women who volunteer in the op shop, and there's just been some profound things that have happened which are centred around the story of the mother and the caring and, you know. Anyway, get a phone call. Hello, how may I help you? I'm looking for my son. And I say, what's your son's name? Which is a crazy thing for me to ask because I'm terrible with names. She says name, and I say, oh no, I don't know that name. What does your son look like? And then this poor mum starts saying, well, he used to look like, and she describes her boy before he was caught in the grips of addiction. And it's taken me many years to be able to tell that story without sobbing. And she said, the last time he went missing, we came up there and we found him, and we haven't heard from him for 3 months. So we were thinking maybe he's there, we're going to travel up and we're going to look for him. And so my model of care was based on this. I hung up that phone, and this was on the front desk when I was a volunteer, and I thought, whoever walks through that door, I'm going to love you for whoever's looking for you. I'm going to care for you in the manner that whoever's looking for you would give them comfort to know that you're being cared for like that. Whoever walks through that door, I'm going to care for you in the ways that people who failed you should have cared for you. Whoever walks through that door, I'm going to care for you in the ways that you didn't even realise you needed to be cared for. And in caring for you, I'm also caring for myself. Because to be able to have calls like that, to have moments where your heart's breaking, unless you can see a way that you can walk with and be beside people and deliver a model of care that not only cares for them but for you, the work becomes too much and overwhelming. So I'd encourage you today, when you go back to your groups and your op shop, you don't take on what works for you, what doesn't. But the most important thing is, what is the model of care? What is the model of care that you would like to give to people when they come into your op shop, so that you can build those community connections and you can also care for yourself while you're doing that. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate your time. Oh, yes, questions, that's okay.
Well, on behalf of everyone here, a huge thank you to you, Vina.
Pleasure.
It's wonderful just to sit there and to listen to you share stories. We could probably stay here for another hour or two and hear more stories. And there's so much we can be challenged by, things that you have said that have challenged us. I really like that powerful ending. What sort of model of care do we offer? And what sort of model of care would we want for our own children or those that we love if they were in a similar situation? So there's lots to be thinking about, and I hope that something has grabbed you that you can take back to, for those that have come from further afield, to your volunteer group, your staff, to share with them. But what we're going to do now is have a time of Q&A. I've got a cordless microphone, so I'll move around and you can ask Vina a question if you've got one. And Vina's quite happy to answer questions that might be in your mind at this time. So think about it, and if you've got a question you'd like to ask, just put your hand up and I'll bring a microphone to you. I acknowledge that, as I said at the start, we've got so much op-shop wisdom in here, it's palpable. We can almost feel it in the air. There's so much experience here, so that's a beautiful thing. But you might want to hear Vina speak to particular parts of the Wayside Chapel op-shops, or what they do as in ministry, or you might just have a general question from the things she shared already. So if you've got a question, pop your hand and I'll try and get around to everyone. Let's go.
And nothing's off the table, I don't mind.
Vina, how do you train your volunteers and your team? What do you offer them training, and how do you maintain ongoing training? How do you prepare them for the role?
Okay, so I'll start with how I would. There's the onboarding in terms of, safeties, exits, etc. If a person is out the front, then I will give key aspects of my customer, my care model. So I'll give you an example. One of my key things when you are on the floor, when somebody walks through with a donation, you must stop and you must say, thank you very much for thinking of us. If you feel comfortable, I will always say, my name's Vina, what was your name? And they'll tell us. But the donating must be as important as finding a great dress at a good price. So I try to, especially for volleys, because we can go through a bit, I try to get the key points, key messaging there first. So my 3 key points would be go slow, take your time, get to know the visitors, and the thank you, and the be aware of what's going on around in case we need to mitigate any challenging behaviours. When I onboard a new volunteer, I only have 1 new volunteer at a time, so that either myself or one of my paid staff can buddy up with them. It's twofold. It's so that, because you can volunteer anywhere in Wayside, so the first bit is so that they love it and they want to come back to the op shop to volunteer, so that they can feel comfortable and get to know each other, and so that we can just go through the different facets to the role. A volunteer shift is 3 hours, and if I am bringing on board a new paid team member, then I'll buddy them up with one of my team members who's been there for a long time. I have sort of touch points. It's because we go 7 days, and you're just trying to make sure that it's quite, there's like 6 key points so that they operate within. So it'd be out the front. Out the back, sorting is tricky. So I always, if a person has started sorting, who's a volunteer, I ask them, and I say, do you love fashion? What do you know about it? And then I gauge from that what they do know. And I'll say, it will take a year, because even me who loved op shopping, I was completely blown away at the range of items that came through. And I'm a fashionophile. My grandmother had Vogue and and I thought I knew it all. And I got out the back of the op shop and I was like, wow, I've only scratched the surface. So I'm very upfront about that, and I say to people who have just started sorting, please go slow and just check with everything. And I like especially out the back, it must be collaborative. I encourage volunteers, staff, ask questions. But with the sorting, that's the money, yeah? The donations, that's the money. So and I tell my paid team, you must take your time with volunteers while they're doing that, because we've had examples where, in the early days, when I was just observing stuff, we'd go through the unwanted donation bags, and there would be things in there that were $7,000 secondhand, because the volunteer thought, oh, I didn't like the pattern. And so they're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? So onboarding with the sorting is the hardest, and I just encourage people to go slow. And with my paid team, I make it very clear they must be patient and show grace, and that it requires a lot of questions. And I model that myself. I do not ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do as a leader. In fact, I will do the worst jobs, because that's what a leader has to do. Just you can say to people, please be patient with the volleys and take your time. I just picked up dog poo in the store. I know that sounds very graphic, but I will load up the van with, the other week I loaded over 2 van loads, sort of 15 to 20K bags. And it was really, I'm not asking people to do that, but I'm saying I don't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't have done myself, and I really expect people to be patient with our volleys. So sorting must go slow. I recently put in computers in both the op shops, they don't have to be fancy, and I get my team to research because I saw that in Sydney, I'm sure there's something similar here, we have consignment stores where people take in, say they've got a Gucci bag, and they will take that into the store, and the store will authenticate it, and they'll value it, and they'll sell it in store on behalf of that person and take a commission, or they'll buy it off that person for a price and then sell it in store. So what was happening is we were getting people because we just didn't quite know the price point of things, we would get like significant on-sellers coming in and just clearing out the store. Now there's two schools of thought on that, right? It's where you go, well, a sale is a sale. But to me, as I've said, the op shop is, like you said earlier, it's a form of ministry, it's a form of community connection. You also offside your customers when they see somebody coming in and just clearing out everything. And we've seen, before we started researching properly, we would see our things being sold on Lawson's for hundreds and a couple of times thousands of dollars more than they'd bought it in store. And pricing is a tricky one. I totally understand it. I advocate for, I've got, pricing is a tricky one, but I just want to speak to this. The other week, somebody brought in $15,000 worth of clothing, and it wasn't loads like you'd think. And that's second hand, once we'd done the pricing, $15,000 second hand. And if somebody came in and handed me $15,000 and I just went, here, have $50 for $5, here, have $100 for $2.50, right? Totally irresponsible. So when I price things, I look at it, there's a few factors that I look at it, but a lot of times when people are donating, particularly the higher end stuff, they're giving you a wad of cash in a different form. And so you want to treat that appropriately, because I have had on occasion where people have made these donations of high-end things. We're very fortunate that we get them, and then we've priced it and they've come in and said, hey, that is worth this much and I've given it to you so you could get a significant amount for it, and I'm really disappointed to see it out here like that, because I'm giving it to you so you can fund it in the services. So it's I guess it's a respect thing too, that I'm trying to give the person who's donated it. And I also, pricing is always going to be the biggest thing. Like even within our stores, when we're in well-heeled areas, it taps out at how much I can charge, yeah? Because you create ill will with people. And even though it's significantly lower than what they'll be able to buy it for online. So at the moment, over the past couple of months, some of the things that we've been doing is say something is worth $400. So I'll tell you the max, things start tapping out over the 200 point, right? That really gets people up in arms. And even if it's and we've researched it, and I'll put on the tag, currently on eBay for $560. We do all of that sort of stuff. People get funny about it. They're like, oh, but you get it for free and da-da-da. And where we are, you are right next door to our community service centre. You can literally see people going in to get a shower and a change of clothes. And so if that doesn't move you and it upsets you at the price, I'm not, that's... So that's why the online avenue has become important for us. Again, because, it really cuts like a knife to see something on Lawson's for hundreds of dollars and people have come in there and bought it from you, and so it's changed my approach to things, because I want to get the best value that I can. And again, it's coming back to the values. The decisions I make is because we keep the visitor at the heart of everything we do. And so I do want my customers to get a good deal, but it's really expensive to fund the programs, as you know. These are also important things to remember when you're in the op shop. There's no funding for admin in a charity. You can't get any grants for the finance team or the HR team. Like, you have to cover that. You don't really get grants for the majority of your staffing costs, and staffing costs are huge in all organisations. So I've gone off track a little, but it's because of sorting and stock and how important it is. And you'd be similar to us. Like we don't have brand partnerships. We're not a big player in the sector. So I know Dacuba isn't coming to me and Gorman isn't coming to me going, we've got 20,000 boxes of dead stock. Would you like them? So it's really important that we sort the stock well, that we're appreciative when people come in and say, thank you so much. And I'll tell you what, you know, the direct benefit of that is when I came, nobody measured. I'm a bit of an information nerd. I love data and analysing stuff. So I started weighing everything, and we got about 1,500 a week, 1,500 kilos walked through the door. And since we've started measuring and we introduced that over 3 years, we now in King's Cross, we don't have any collection bins, you have to walk it through. We get between 2.5 and 3 tonne a week. That's just walk through the door. And in Bondi, we get about, that varies a lot. We can get 1.5 to 2.5 tonne walk through the door every week. And that's just, and actually on our board is Paul Zara, who was CEO of David Jones for many years. And we're nice to everybody, cleaner or king, you walk in, everybody gets the same treatment. So he had donated to a charity further afield when he was selling one of his homes. And then he said, it just felt like nothing. We went in there and it just felt like nothing. It was actually an unpleasant experience. And I said, what do you mean unpleasant? Were they rude to you? Or, because you know, people are people, like you might meet somebody on a bad day. And he said, oh no, it was just, we were like rushed. And then he said, so we just decided to donate to you because we just lived down the road. And he said, it was such a pleasant experience that's when I approached Wayside to ask if there was like any roles on the board. So that's what I'm saying. The op shop has like real life impacts on the community, and you never know. But that, and that's what I love. I love it when people say, "Oh, I donated. Your team is so lovely." That really means the world to me. But in terms of onboarding, concentrate on the sorting with the stock. Take your time. If you can, get a computer, research everything, and it also helps you when people are like, this price, and you say, oh, actually, it's $600 online, or you know, it's $60 online, and we're selling it for $15, so it gives you comfort. Yeah.
Next question.
You can ask me. Go.
Is there any stuff you refuse to take? I mean, do you accept everything?
The only thing that's really tricky at the moment is books. You cannot give away books, and I love books. I'm very transparent with people. Listen, this is my perspective on it. If you're going to do it, you just have to accept that you're going to do it, right? Also, it's really bad to start saying to people, we can't take anymore, we can't take anymore. It offsides people. I understand there can be restrictions around space. I will say with books, I say to people, look, I want to be, and you know, sometimes it'll be different things, but I'll say, I just want to be transparent with you. We can't keep them. We don't have enough space for them. And we also, when we give them away for free, people don't want them. So those kind of conversations are really important. When I take things, I'm actually farming things off to different charities as well. We're now part of a pilot scheme with Charitable Reuse Australia called the Stock Market. And so it's very simple at this stage. It's like a WhatsApp group. And then like the other day I put in there and said, I've got 50 pairs of women's jeans. Is anybody else in the area wanting them? So I really advocate for trying to move things on. The other thing is like we also have our emergency wardrobe for our visitors. So there's things that we wouldn't necessarily sell in the store, but we need for our emergency wardrobe. So like trackies and so it'd be rare that I'd say no to something, but I'll give you an example when I do say no, and it's over a period of observation. The backpackers kept bringing us rubbish bags full of stuff, and it was filthy. And that's when I intervened and said, please don't, we can't take this anymore. You know, we ask that people clean stuff, like wash things before they bring them. Everything's very soiled. We wouldn't be able to use it. So that's when I would have those discussions. But it's also just dependent on where you are.
And how do you get the stuff that you can't sell?
Again, we send them off to different charities. I go really hard on the discounting. So once something comes on the floor, so it's really basic. I have 4 different coloured tags. On the 4th week that colour's been on the floor, everything's 50% off. At the end of the week of that item being 50% off, if it's still there, it goes into our $5 room. And then with the $5 room, when we're rotating it, if it gets too full, I started having a thing called kilo sales. Other charities might do fill a bag for $5, but every quarter. So we used to get lots of bric-a-brac and we couldn't sell it. You know, we just couldn't sell it. But now what I do is every quarter I have a bric-a-brac sale in the church hall, which people love, because it's just this lovely community event and it's nostalgic, and there's nothing over $5 with the bric-a-brac. And then last bric-a-brac sale I introduced the $5 a kilo sale. So I'm really extending the life out of the product. It helps create good community will when, you know, when people are talking about pricing. I can also speak to the point, I go, oh, you just, you know, but every quarter we have this, and it's another offering to your customer base to get them back in.
Thanks, Vina.
Pleasure.
There's a lot of people here from different op shops.
Yeah.
And I know most of these op shops were grown quite organically from the ground up over many years, and some would never have reached the level at which you are at now, which is, I mean, Wayside Chapel is a corporation, and you operate at a corporate level, which is important. It's a business that you have to take care of in every respect, and that includes your op shop. And I'm sure that your op shop supplies an enormous amount of money for the services of Wayside Chapel.
Yeah.
But you also pay staff, and
Yes.
I don't think there'd be one op shop here that has paid staff.
Yeah.
I think they'd be all volunteers.
Yes.
So there's a subtle difference. That's okay. We understand that.
Yeah.
We might have to think, will it help us to look at getting paid staff in and running longer hours?
Yes.
For what reason, I don't know, but if we have a reason to do that.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that your model of people only bring things in through the door is quite exceptional, I think.
Yeah.
Because you don't get stuff dumped at the door.
We still get stuff dumped at the door, but from a WH&S perspective, I don't want anybody going through that because we don't know what's in it.
It just becomes rubbish.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of messaging around that, so it's significantly less. I don't think you're ever going to be able to stop dumping, but it's become significantly less, and we're very transparent that if you dump this on the doorstep, it'll go in the bin. Because I've been sorting before, and someone had put a bag in to be sorted that had been on the front porch, and I went in and just sort of stopped. I was really fortunate and realised there's just all this broken glass through it that was under the fabric. And so, like, if that happened to me, but if that happened to someone who I was like one of my volleys or one of my team, I would just just feel awful. And I just don't want to invite anybody to sort through what we don't know where it's come from.
I mean, I tend to think that that's a great idea, that you only let stuff through the door, but we don't seem to have that opportunity just yet because we have our donation bins. If we took the donation bins away, it'll end up being dumped at the doorstep anyway. That's how people understand the operation of an op shop. That's how it appears to me. I don't think any way to defeat that.
Okay, I can speak to that. I can speak to your first point too. In terms of, so again, and all salient points as well, thank you. I spoke earlier of being a member of the Charitable Reuse Australia group, which is a sector-wide group for people, not just with op shops, but anyone, repurposing, reusing furniture, etc. Their quarterly benchmarking report came back to me the other day. It's the first time I've participated in it because I'm always, mindful about where the information's going and what I'm releasing. The difference between volunteer-led only op shops, the revenue, the bottom line, it's about 3 times less than when you've got a mix of volunteers and paid staff. So there is data that, and to be fair, there's 3,000 op shops Australia-wide, so on this data set only 1,500 people participated, but I think that's a fairly good indicator. And I don't think you need to be a gigantic store. I think there's big. There's big stores. Our stores are small. One's 84 square meters. That's just the floor, and the other one's like, I think, maybe 79 square meters. And we are selling per square meter triple what other stores are within our size range, which is 200 meters and under. And I've done up the Bondi Op shop slightly because it used to be a cafe. 95% of everything in there has been repurposed, and I did it on a shoestring budget. And even though Wayside might have that optics of we are a big corporation, when I came in to run the op shops, I've only worked for basically, I say I work with entrepreneurs, but that's small business. And having come from a family that like have small businesses, you need to be able to do everything. So I do not like to spend money, and I actually haven't career-wise come up in an organisation where we go, oh, first we're going to have a feasibility study, and then we're going to have another meeting, and then we're going to go out and do community engagement and ask questions. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there's been no money in the coffers from my career trajectory to be able to do that. So a lot of it is being, for example, changes that I've made in terms of operating back of house. I just got cardboard boxes from the movers. I'd never like to spend money where I don't have to. They're just those big cardboard tea chest moving boxes, and I just put 5 in an alcove and said, that's where, when we get the donations, that's where they all go. So that we look at it and go, that's the received donations area. And we can be piled high. I've got a really simple end of day process, the 4 C's: clearing, culling, checking, cleaning. So clear the benches, clearing, checking, check everything, check your racks. If you see something that's been there for 3 weeks, either get it on the floor or it means it's not right for the store, so get it off to the next charity. Culling. That's the same thing. We've got 50 jeans. Let's get on the app and message the other op shops and say we've got 50 pairs of jeans. Would anyone like them? Or ship them off to another charity. And then cleaning, so that the next day, the person who turns up to do that shift can just get running straight away. Which sounds simple, right? But when I came in, none of that was happening. Nothing at all. It was just chaotic, and I don't mean that as in any shade or disrespect to people who've been before, but I've built warehouse teams. I've come from retail. I've understood what you need to do to keep things moving smoothly. So, and it doesn't need to be expensive, but it does take time. And it does take continual training, and it is frustrating. So I agree with the dumping, and shifting cultural thought and norms. And that comes back to why it's really important to build up those connections within your community because you need other people to go out in the community and be mouthpieces, even around simple things like, oh, they said that everybody's dumping on the doorstep and they're getting overwhelmed with it and they have to throw it away because they can't go through it because they could get cut or they could get... So when you share stories and build connections like that, but it isn't easy for those sorts of things, for that shift, and I acknowledge that. And we did have bins when I started in Wayside, and they were in Bondi, and affluent, well-heeled, educated. There was not a language barrier in Bondi, let me tell you. We posted everything, we were doing social media things, everywhere talking to people. That community has money to hire a skip bin. And still, I would be in that donation bin, no soles on the shoes. Oh, thank you. That's exactly what my visitors need. No soles on their shoes. Dirty, dirty clothes. And so that was the motivation, because I thought if I can't cut through to a place, there's no barriers to you understanding, please don't put that in the bin. And that's why we got rid of it. But also to make those community connections with people. I want to thank you. Because you know what happened? People were ringing the op shop and going, I used to donate to insert charity name here. And I just donated stuff to them and they were so rude to me. 30 years, I'm never going to do that. And I would always say, I'm not going to dump on other charities, by the way. We're all doing the heavy work. And I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry that you had that experience. You know, sometimes people are having a bad day, and sometimes it's volunteers. It could be that person's first shift. And I can understand that would be so disappointing, because, you know, it's like you're trying to do a good thing and you have that. And I'll say, well, you're more than welcome to bring it here, but, you know, I hope that you can reflect on all the great things that that charity has done. You know, you can bring it here. But so when that happened quite a few times, I thought, oh, we really have to stop and thank people. Like, we really need to make sure we do that. And the other thing that would happen along those lines is I would tell people, oh, I'm there running the op shop. It mortified me. People would say, oh, my mother, my auntie, my da-da-da-da-da, used to volunteer at the op shop, insert the name of the charity, and you get first dibs on everything. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And it would even happen within the organisation, so I set parameters around that, you know. And I'm very clear to people when they start volunteering. We don't have first dibs. We must handle everything in a manner that is befitting of the person who's been given stuff, you know. I'm adamant on that. And also the other thing with that, you're not allowed to price something yourself to buy it. You're not allowed to say to your team member, can you price this for me, please? If something can be priced and put on the floor, you've got to wait till the end of the day. Every now and then you can ask me and I'll let you go first, but we're the first to handle it. We must be ethical when we handle it.
And very briefly, the last thing that I think you're very successful at is that you have, like, you'll have $5 racks and you'll have racks with stuff worth more than $100 or $200.
Yeah.
So they're quite well indicated that if you're going in looking for something cheap, there's always going to be something in your price range.
Yes, yeah. And I also encourage people, like, the beauty of rotating stock like that, because the other thing that I learned was when I'd say to people, oh, that's a $5 room, and they'd go, oh, what, is that all the junk? You're sending me into the junk? And I'd say, no, there's actually amazing stuff in there. What they don't know, it's $5 because nobody wanted it, even at 50% off. But people love that $5 room, and there's treasures in there. It's surprise and delight, right? So I know many of you here, there's an amazing designer, Diane von Fostenberg, and this lady came out one day and she said, oh my goodness, darling, you've priced this incorrectly. And I went, no, that's correct. And then she found a Ted Barker dress, and she comes in and she said to me, you know when I fell in love with this place? And I said, was it the DVF dress and the Ted Barker? Yes, that's the exact moment. So it's also a great marketing tool as well, because it's surprise and delight. People go out and go, oh my goodness, I just bought this Ted Barker. You know, we've sold Gucci in that room for $5, and I don't know. And I want it to be I don't want it to be, it's no us and them. I don't want it to be exclusionary. I want everyone to get a good crack at, what we've got.
Questions?
You mentioned earlier about the product that comes in that really isn't usable in any shape, way or form. Not our op shop, but another one in our area, actually has a skip bin that gets emptied every week.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, how do we nicely stop people, or politely stop people, from coming in with their black garbage bags that they plonk and run. Yeah. And when you open it up, it's so bad it's not described. Yeah. Look,
again, that is a slow moving piece to change, and that actually requires lots of postering, lots of robust conversation, as I like to say, and but it's not an easy fix, and it's a slow fix. And I've had some very stern conversations with people about, I've got a woman donating all of this incredible, I was a stylist, this is amazing, I've got bags and bags and bags of it. And I opened the bag and it was mouldy. And I was like, and I just said, I'm diplomatic, but you can be firm, you're allowed to stand within your power, like who's going to, she goes, I thought it was all okay. And I went, look, unfortunately, it's not okay. It's mouldy, and the moment I open that, that's a health hazard for my team and my volunteers, and then it goes into the waste, and we have to pay for that waste. And that's another however many dollars that doesn't go into buying a pair of undies, you know? And so, but it's not easy, I acknowledge that, you know? And if that's happening on that level, not if that, because it's happening on that level, it's going to be even harder to shift that behaviour. And I'm sorry that's happening. Yeah, I'm sorry that's happening. And it was, you know, when people, there's a game in Bondi and people would say, well, it's like, shouldn't you be grateful? It's like, one of my cheeky lines is, when they'd give you things with holes, I'd say, they're homeless, darling, they're not blind. I can't give them this t-shirt with holes in the armpits. Oh, darling. You know, and so it's yeah, that's a slow moving piece to change. I acknowledge that.